I think Christian school is a good scaffold for your child. It's a scaffolding to build things on. It's not the whole structure. I don't depend on my school to teach my children everything, or my Sunday school, or my church. We are the ones responsible for our children's outlook and how they treat other people.
Welcome to the 42 Podcast, where we discuss life together, looking for answers to life, the universe, and, well, everything else. Here are your hosts, Rob and Lindsay. I'm gonna fight you today.
Well, look, I'm ready. I'm ready for a good fight. It's been too long.
Yeah. And, when we say we're gonna fight, it's always in feels weird to say, but, it's always in love and
good fun.
Gracious, and we have different opinions, but
yeah,
doesn't mean one of us is wrong or right.
Are we gonna fight about tequila?
Oh, gosh.
Is that what we're gonna fight about?
That's not what we're gonna fight about, but you're just wrong.
If I'm wrong, then Nell is wrong with me, and she's classy, so I can't be that wrong.
I'm gonna see Nell tomorrow, and I'm gonna tell her she's wrong. I'm hoping to see Nell tomorrow, and I'm gonna tell her she's wrong. Because I don't think I'd give that to my worst enemies. I've had tequila in, like, fruity drinks and things like that, and it's, okay.
We tried to drink it straight, and you didn't like it.
I had it straight, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is what I imagine brake fluid tastes like.
Well, everybody says that about whiskey before they get used to it and try it and stuff. They're always like, it tastes like paint thinner.
Okay, but you want to go on that route. I mean, I was thinking about it where it's okay. Regions that are colder, I like their drinks. Regions that are warmer, I don't like their drinks.
Yeah.
Because Scotch, I'm all for that. Vodka? Yeah, I can drink that straight. Tequila? Nope.
That's funny. I don't like Scotch. I think it tastes burned. It tastes like burned Band-Aids. Like if you burned a Band-Aid and put it in your mouth, that's what Scotch tastes like to me.
You're getting the wrong kind of Scotches.
No, I'm not. I get like Dewar's.
That's the wrong kind of Scotch.
Well, you have to fight with my brother-in-law on that one. But maybe he's on a budget, and maybe that's why he got it. But I don't like it.
Dewar's is budget Scotch. It's not good Scotch.
So give me a good Scotch. I'll write it down.
Balvenie.
Spell it.
B-A-L...
Balvenie?
Balvenie.
Well, I'm sure Google will correct it. All right.
Now that you've asked me to spell it, I have no idea how to spell it. B-A-L-V-E-N-I-E. That's a good one. I'm blanking on the other two. They're top shelf. Oh my gosh, why can't I remember it? I can see the bottle.
Christmas Scotch.
No, I prefer single cask, Scotches. Things that have had time to age, and they have this very nice, even taste and burn to them. Yeah.
I'll give it a shot. I won't write off Scotch indefinitely.
Now, here's where I have to admit, I haven't had Scotch for a while. And when I have had something, it's been kind of journeying through whiskeys and what American whiskeys do I like.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. All right, anyway, that's not what we're fighting over.
Okay.
Boy, was that a rabbit trail this morning. We're going to talk about education. You're like, whiskey. Tequila. Now.
Well, that's the last thing I thought we disagreed on. That's all.
We're talking about public and private schools.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about. Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And your kids are?
We go to a private school. Tiny little thing. They've got 71 students this year. Total.
My kids are all public.
Yeah. Yeah.
And inevitable.
Inevitably?
There we go. I can't think about it. Inevitably. Inevitably, I think we're going to fight. Not major.
Maybe. You might be disappointed. I'm not sure.
Well, when you were growing up,
Yeah.
where did you go? Public or private?
Public school. And I was homeschooled some before.
Okay.
We were going to go to a private school. We thought about it, but I hated it because I had to wear a skirt, and I gave me the heebie-jeebies. Did not like it. And my mom's like, yeah, we won't do that. I'm sure she had other reasons besides like the dress code, but and the money. It was pretty expensive for us at the time. But I probably would have done well at a private Christian school because I knew a lot about the Bible. I would have done well in those classes. But yeah, I went to public school 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, up through... Actually, 8th grade I might have been homeschooled. But then I was public schooled 9th through 12th. And I did okay. 6th grade was a nightmare in public school. I was made fun of because I wore, like, secondhand stuff, and my shoes were dad shoes. Like, you know, those Nike dad shoes? I had those, and I didn't know people were making fun of me until too late, and it wasn't a good year. It wasn't a good year for me. But high school was fine.
So then, between those, private and public and homeschool, what do you have a preference for out of your experience?
I like the private school. I feel a sense of security there, that my kids are going to be safe. I know all the teachers by name. I know most of the students, and it's kind of like homeschooling, but with a bunch of other people. I mean, that's like the feel.
There's a closer community.
I like the community, yeah. Whereas public school, I feel like a tiny cog in a big machine that doesn't really listen to you. And it really doesn't depend on the area. Like, our schools have a reputation here for not being good and being trashy and scary and not getting the funding they deserve and just being messy, really messy. I've thought about it. I mean, Colby and I discussed it because I knew I didn't want to homeschool for very long. A couple years ago, I didn't think I could homeschool, but the Christian school was really expensive for us at the time. And so it's like my only option was homeschooling, and that was very claustrophobic feeling. And we discussed public school, and Colby really doesn't want the kids in the public school because of safety issues and the maturity of the kids at like 11, you know, like culturally, sexually, drugs, and all kinds of stuff. So it just seemed safer. But granted, that's my community. That's where we live. So it could be really different for you guys, or it could just be a risk worth taking. I don't know.
Yeah. So you said something in that. You said something 2 times directly and hinted at it a 3rd time that I guess I'm going to latch on to for a minute. Safety and risk with public schools. Can I bluntly ask what it is you're referring to with that safety and risk, that concern?
The randomness of violence. Shootings, school shootings, bomb scares. The fact that it could happen anywhere, it doesn't matter where. There's no telling where. It just seems really random. And so I just don't want to risk it, I guess. I'd rather keep them in a small place where I know everybody, and I know the doors are locked. Whenever the between the bells, the door's locked, you need to ring in to get inside, and I like that. Things like that.
And you don't feel you have that with the public schools up there?
No.
How heavy, how constant is the thought and concern of school shooting on your mind? Or school threat and violence?
Well, because my kids are where they are, it's not a concern. I'm not worried in the least bit.
But putting them in a public school, that's a major concern that you've had.
Definitely, just because it's so random.
Okay.
Which kind of means, like, also statistically, could it happen at my school? It's not likely, right? I mean, it's not likely. But the fact that there's really nothing you can do about it, and you don't know.
If you're playing the numbers game, yeah, where you're at, less students, smaller environment, the numbers are a lot lower for that risk. But, I mean, it's always there, especially in today's culture and society.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, our ability to have an argument as a society has come down to yelling, screaming, and being morons.
Yeah.
And, hoping nobody caught that to put it up on TikTok or Facebook or YouTube kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think only feeds that cycle, but...
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. We started this podcast recording, you and I, in September of 2020. We had those first few episodes where we were figuring things out, and the hope of it was to be able to create a space and an environment where people could disagree, but still be friends at the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
And we did that. We have that, because there are things we don't agree on. But that is a lost piece of who we are as a society now.
Yes, I think it's something that needs to be cultivated in our schools, frankly. I think that's where it happens, is in school. And at home too.
It is. Home is the biggest teaching ground, period.
The first.
And if you don't...
Yeah.
Yeah. Because, I mean, you've got the kid preschool having them, so you're laying foundations for who they will be as an individual. And are they going to walk into that school and be a positive influence, or are they going to be a terror?
Right. Yep.
And we don't consider that. We don't consider the little actions that we do to and for and with each other. Adeline has been picking up on little things that I do. And I'm trying to curb it, but the grunting language filled with some expletives when I drive, and somebody cuts me off, and that was select choice of words. But even to little moments, I don't know, it's neat watching her and her emotional intelligence pick up on little things. Like, we went and, just because of how the day was yesterday, we picked up dinner. So as we went to the restaurant, I had put our online order in, so we were able to bypass the line, go to the pickup window, and just get our food. Well, the line is all the way out the door for the restaurant to get in, to order food, to have dinner. It's dinner time, so, people were cranky,
Mm-hmm.
And when we got our food, I thanked the server and said, "Look, good luck tonight. I get what you're going through." And gave him a little tip, and, she's like, "Well, why'd you do that? What's this? Why? What importance is that?" And it's, well, small kind words to anyone and everyone can have bigger impacts than we ever realize.
Mm-hmm.
And it's neat watching her process that.
Yeah.
And then try to replicate that. We have lost that art in some way. There's always an element of that, though, that gets lost in society, especially as you get older. Like, looking at the world, there was... Is it fair to say that when you looked at the world when you were 20, you had a lot more hope, and looking at it now, so many years later, that hope is kind of worn off a bit?
Hope's a funny word, I guess, but I guess the world seemed a lot bigger. It looked like I felt like I had more options, like I could do anything. And I guess my world is much more realistic and small, but I'm more comfortable with that than I would have been at 20. I think at 20, if I saw myself now and how small my world is, I think I'd be a little disappointed But the fact that I have a podcast and I'm about to be a librarian, yeah, I think my 20-year-old energetic, fiery self had a lot of ambition, and I could have gone anywhere and done anything, I think, at the time. Maybe. Or at least that's what I thought in my head.
I knew you when you were 20.
Yeah.
You were like a chipmunk, hopped up on caffeine and crack.
Yeah.
And what's worse is you weren't even the most energetic of the group. You were like the calmest. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so I think there's an element of that happened, but then there's social media and cynicism as we grow older and forgetting what it is to have that fight in your 20s as you're figuring out what the world is, and I think those natural tensions will always be there. And there are other influences that are exacerbating and making them worse, making the whole bit of tension worse, but it's easy to forget what it is to be a teenager, and I think that's the blessing and curse of what I do, is I'm not forgetting what it is to be a teenager. I'm walking through every age of this with my students.
And I think there's two things here. The most important thing, I think, with teaching our kids and how to prepare them for the world is to teach empathy. And trying to teach them to get their head out of their own rear ends and think about other people and what your decisions mean to other people, even the small ones, and to put yourself in other people's shoes. And I think that will take them a long way.
Yeah. And empathy is something that is best taught at home first.
It is. Yeah, and the fact that everybody's different from you. And we have our own ideas, but other people have their own ideas and they're valuable. And that's sort of tied in with empathy, is that you have your own ideas that you feel strongly about, well, so do they. And they're valuable, and we don't judge people for what they believe. So that is a very important lesson I'm trying to bestow all the time with my kids. The older they get, the more they're noticing things like who has money and expensive things, cheap things, how people dress and what they believe and what they say and things like that. We're talking about it more and more, and I feel a sense of urgency is too strong a word, but an awareness. And when those conversations happen, I jump on them because this is where it happens. This is where my kids can become compassionate, empathetic, or empathic.
I always say empathetic.
Empathetic individuals, that don't judge. Because I think one of the weaknesses of youth, it can be a good thing. I think it is a good thing in a way, but it's a double-edged sword, is the black and white nature of youth. How everything is 100%. It's 100% yes or 100% no, and there's no gray, and that's why kids can be so mean. And I value that, because that's why young people get into fights, and young people go to war, and young people are the ones that we draft and things like that, because they're the ones that are just 100% yay or nay.
You are giving me blasts from, version 1 of Lindsay that I knew. The very black and white nature of who you were.
I know. I was so black and white. And I was a dink at times. It made me a powerful person in a way, but it also made me a dink. And I've mellowed out a ton, obviously, and...
Well, I know, and there's a part of me that, going back and, in 15 years, you're going to know Lindsay and be running a podcast with her, and she's going to be an entirely different Lindsay. No, that's not who Lindsay... But there's that grace of maturity, that grace of mellowing, beginning to understand grace in this world, empathy in this world, mercy in this world.
Yeah. I think that's why kids need teachers and mentors and leaders and fathers and mothers and aunts and uncles, so that they're not crazy, so that they don't go and join jihad or some kind of crazy Christian cult or whatever. Quasi. Christian is in quotations there, but that's why they need us. That's why they're in school. Hopefully, is to mellow and ease that crazy zealotry, the zealotry of youth.
No, and that's accurate. I mean, there's a zeal to being a youth in the world, and I get to see it all the time with students, and it's okay. I get it. Give life some time. Those edges will wear off. But no, all right. So coming back full around to the element of safety, this is where we've diverged at, and I have to admit, this is a part of the struggle I have had, that I have, and I'm not a fan of it. Every morning when the school year is in, for the past couple years, my wife has gone to one school and my kids have gone to 2 other schools. So 3/4 of my family is in a school building somewhere, and there's nothing I can do to protect them. And the news pops up with the next school shooting, and look, here's where the security failed, here, and here, and or here's where the school failed in catching the student, or my wife and my kids come home from their schools, and it's, thank God. I sit and talk with my students in the youth ministry, and there's frustration because they go to school and they can see some of these flaws. They can see these concerns. They can see, depending on what their political opinion is, how the government is failing them and failing to protect them. And so that's something that I have not been okay with the public schools. We declare schools gun-free zones, but we don't give them enough resources to protect the students. Like the school district my kids go to, they have 5 school buildings and 1 resource officer between them. And they're not like, oh, there are 5 buildings on this whole campus. It's 5 buildings in our corner of the county. That's not cool. And there are a handful of schools in this area that are that way, where it's, well, we have 1 resource officer. Each building should have 1. Mm-hmm. Each building should actually have 2. And I get it, fine, that's 10 additional salaries, but that's 10 additional salaries to protect your students. So, yeah, I'm right there with you. That's an aggravation with me. But we decided to do public schooling, although we weren't always in that position. We were looking at and leaning towards private when we lived on the other side of the state of PA. Mm-hmm. And debating on doing that because we did not like the school district we lived in. But there was also a bit of a my father he's retired. He was a public school administrator. Sorry, Dad. I keep throwing my parents under the bus with this
podcast.
Yeah. I love you guys. Nothing horrible and traumatic? I don't know. Anyway, there was a bit of an expected and anticipated fight when we were starting to talk maybe sending the kids to private school, because my dad was a public school administrator. It wasn't what we expected. It was a good conversation, and it was a good moment. And then we moved out of that section of the county and found a school district we liked. So that worked in our favor. But Yeah. I also expected your answer for why you were doing public school to be different than it was, and that's where I anticipated the fight a little bit. It's kind of there, but not entirely there.
Yeah, I mean, it's one reason. Safety is one reason.
Yeah.
There are several. Community, safety. The fact that schools tend to, especially certain times of the year, educate to test the state tests. God. And this and that. It's so foolish, and it's not really about education. It's about funding, and it's about, doing well on the statistics, and I don't like that at all. I think if there's testing, it should be to measure the children against each other, and make sure that your child is learning and progressing. That's what testing should be, not for funding, necessarily. I mean, I get that we need funding, but I just don't like that. I didn't like that in school. I hated it.
No, and I get that. That's a bureaucrat somewhere justifying their job by saying, okay, these kids need to take a test that I'm going to sit here and evaluate a school's ability to get funding on? Yeah. That system's a bit broken, but no, I expected a little more of the faith aspect on, and that's where I feel a little challenged. Not challenged. I don't know. I'll just say it and then we'll unpack it. How about that?
Okay.
But I want to protect my child's faith, and that public school is just going to destroy it. I've heard those justifications in the past, and that's what I struggle and fight with, because it's, well, if your child isn't challenged in faith, how is their faith ever allowed to grow?
I can see both sides of this, and I think the question is, when you're, let's say, okay, so I'm not even going to say exactly which side of this I fall on, but I'm going to play the devil's advocate. On the one hand, you've got religious people that don't want to sully their children at all by putting them in the public schools, and maybe they look at school like boot camp. When you're in boot camp, you don't fight. You don't go fight in boot camp. You train. And then the fighting comes later. So I think that perspective of protecting your children and keeping them out of the public schools because they're so impressionable and young and they're learning everything, maybe that's not the time to fight. Maybe the fight is in your family or in your community, but not necessarily your school. So I get that perspective, but I also get the other perspective where I'm not sure I only want my kids to hear one side of the story. I think I like the idea of them being exposed to other ideas and beliefs and people that aren't just like you. I think that's important, and I think that develops a sense of empathy. And I think that's part of the disillusionment that might happen when an 18-year-old kid who's never spent any time with people that aren't Christians steps into the workforce, and it's like a slap in the face. And I don't want that for my kids. I want them to know people that are different than them. They're at a Christian school right now. They're not really going to get that. Most of the people, all the people, it's assumed that they're all believers. So I get why public school might be... I wouldn't be in super trepidation about that aspect to send my kids to public school.
But I've seen that in the past where people have homeschooled or done a private school for that exact reason of, I want to protect my kid's faith. But what they do with it is actually a detriment in a lot of ways, because that kid then goes out into the world with none of the support, none of the background that they need, and when they're exposed to the world...
Yeah.
It's like the concept of the Amish Rumspringer. You're 16, you have a year, go be wild.
I think it also, I don't know the word to use, but stimulates or encourages a perspective that's very us versus them. And I don't like that. I don't like that at all. So I'm with you. I'm with you there.
And that's the thing that I worry about and I fight and push against, because it's, well, you have to let their faith have challenges before they become an adult and have all of the questions that are. College is a place where faith can be destroyed or it can take its deepest roots and flourish. And it's not because, oh no, college is, trying to destroy faith. It's the foundations that you set your child on. And it's those foundations that they're going to move away from, but do they come back to them in a sense that this is not only what I know, but this is what I truly believe. And that's, that comes back to parenting, and the hardest part of all of that is, you are the foundation. You are the one that is the main teacher, not the schools, not the comfort zones of what you might think is good. You're the teacher.
Yes.
Period.
And that's why it's good to know what is being taught in the classroom. Even for me, with my kids going to private school, where all the curriculum is Christian, that doesn't necessarily mean I like everything that's being taught. And if things are happening in the classroom or something comes up, I want to have those discussions with my kids and without confusing them too much, give them sort of a broader perspective.
So this is one of the things that I like that's post-2020, post-pandemic, is the element of how much of the classroom is now at home and how much is in school, with the continuing growth of cyber being incorporated into the schools, where, the kids can bring home their school iPad with all of their resources on it. But on top of that, Melinda and I have access through, I forget what the school is using. We have access through that. We can see the assignments. We can see the lessons. We can interact with them in a way that's not just looking at the math homework page, which I do anyway, and go, wait, why are there more? What happened to the letters? Now we're on symbols? I hate math.
Right. But I agree. I think it's important to care.
That has been a great thing where it's okay. The classroom is easily connected at home as well.
I think Christian school is a good scaffold for your child. It's a scaffolding to build things on. It's not the whole structure.
Right.
I don't depend on my school to teach my children everything, or my Sunday school, or my church. We are the ones responsible for our children's outlook and how they treat other people.
Right. And acknowledging that, leaning into that, knowing that, that's a big deal. That doesn't always happen, and that's unfortunate.
A recurring word throughout my being a parent has been deliberateness. Deliberation, to be deliberate. I don't let things happen. I mean, I'm not perfect. Obviously, if you've been listening to this podcast, you know I have my flaws. Many, 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 many flaws. But I try to be deliberate, as far as spending time with the kids or making sure they're polite to people. I try to be deliberate, and otherwise things don't happen. Otherwise, kids' natures are just going to take their course. You have to be deliberate and step in and make decisions and say, honey, I know you're shy and you don't really want to give hugs, and that's fine, but you do need to say hello if someone says hello to you. Things like that. Like, I don't want to, I want to be deliberate, even though it's a tiny thing. It will make her successful in life, is to overcome feelings of anxiety and be polite anyway. You don't have to give hugs. You don't have to have conversations if you don't want to, but you do need to say hello when someone says hello to you, and it's polite to smile if someone smiles at you. Little tiny things, but you got to be deliberate.
Right. And it's not just deliberate in encouragement to them, but also in living that out and showing that
Yes.
even when you don't want to. So, and that is tough. See, now wait a minute, Lindsay. We were supposed to be fighting over the systems of education and what was better, not, enabling and encouraging independence
Yeah.
and, do what's right for you and your family, but understand you are the primary teacher.
See,
Come on,
historically,
Lindsay. We're supposed to
you've
fight.
been the one to zig and zag. To zig when I think you're going to zag, etc. But this time it's my turn to zag when you think I'm going to zig.
No, but it's a good discussion because it is what is right for you where you're at physically, what is right for you and your kids, because you are the only one who knows your kids, who knows what they need. So it's not just, hey, I've done this because of a dogmatic thing, which I haven't seen as much in the past 5 years. I haven't seen that dogmatic need to, we must protect the child's faith.
For who?
Just in life, in work, in general. And I think some of that comes down to the social media introductions where that's a greater caustic. And I've seen more protections there than I've seen in they have to go to Christian school because this is the safe harbor.
Yeah, I think our generation was maybe secluded more or protected more dogmatically. And possibly as parents, our generation has slack isn't the right word because it sort of means a negative thing, but eased up on that philosophy a little.
So there's another side to this, and this may be just regional to where I grew up on. There's an element of it that I've seen in some articles and writing, but where I grew up, there were 2 places to go if you wanted to.
I'm stuck in my shirt. Okay. Ow.
You might want to specify that.
I was taking a long sleeve shirt off, okay? And I got stuck because there's buttons on the sleeves, on the wrists.
But you have a shirt underneath. Thank you very much.
I am wearing a shirt, yes.
But no, where I grew up, if you wanted to find drugs, there were 2 places that you would go. You'd go to the rough section of town, or you would go to the private Christian school. It was a Catholic school. Those were the spots to get drugs.
That makes a lot of sense, actually. That's really interesting.
Well, it was a really good school. The private school was.
Kids who had a lot of money.
They had a lot of money. Right. And there was that element of boredom, and the answer to that for them was drugs. But those were the 2 spots that, culturally in that moment, I knew of where you found drugs.
My cousin went to a large Catholic school, and it was not the size of my school's small. My school's 70 students. This school was probably a couple hundred. I'm not really sure, but hundreds maybe. And she didn't really have good things to say about it. It was just the same as a public school, no different. I mean, except for maybe the safety, I guess, but it was no different.
Yeah, Catholic schools can come with a few extra strings attached than a traditional faith private school. They come with their own strings as well, but it's reading and understanding your situation, what works best for you and your family. And how do you do that? So, yeah. Come on, we were supposed to fight more.
Sorry.
Well, fun little story for you then, with schools and the public schools my kids go to. Yeah, Melinda will be a little mad at me for this, but oh well. You okay?
It's getting hot in my closet. Yep.
Okay.
Control yourself.
I just want to make a joke. All right, I'm going to move on. I'll save it for your new space next week. Anyway, the schools that my kids attend, I I swear, Melinda only ever kind of brushes me off and lets me go to the parent-teacher meetings when she needs me to sit there and just kind of, arms crossed, scowling, staring at the teacher, reminding them that I work in ministry and I'm staring into the depth of their soul. It's not exactly that, but one of the ladies that she worked with at the school, I would go on Fridays and drop lunch off or things like that for Mel. And the lady was like, "Is your husband okay? He doesn't smile. He always looks angry. Friday's my day off. I don't need to smile. I just want to leave me alone. I've peopled. I need to not people." But that's the impression that the school has of me, where it's, oh, she's bringing in the grouchy guy again.
My husband's kind of the grouchy guy too, though. He doesn't emote very much, and people that don't know him just assume he's really stern and stoic.
I can definitely have that appearance and feel, especially on Friday, because I'm like, okay, I have peopled all week. I need to not people. I just need to be able to exist without any emotion. Or, oh my gosh, what was the story I was going to tell? I don't know. I had a funny story along those lines too. All right. So, do what's best for you. We never really talked about homeschooling. We didn't talk about your homeschooling.
What about my homeschooling? Oh, my experience?
Yeah, how did you like homeschooling?
I loved it. I had a lot of independence. I would start school at like 6 a.m, be done by 9, get on my bike, and I would just go into the city, the town. It was a big town for that area. And I had a lot of fun. I loved homeschooling because I could be done fast. In hindsight, I think I probably needed more attention in math, but you can only do so much. Math and writing and things, but I loved it. I enjoyed it. Yeah.
Now what about homeschooling your kids?
I feel like I am not a good enough teacher. I feel very inadequate. I feel like I kind of screwed up Toby. I don't know. The teacher hasn't said that, but he's going into 4th grade, and his math is really weak because I'm weak. And we had a curriculum, but he just wasn't getting certain things, and I didn't know how to get him to get it. So I don't know. He's gonna be okay. I think he'll just need like 3rd grade reinforcement, which is okay because he's in a class that's a 3rd grade and 4th grade class combined. So I think that will be fine for math. It's just I feel insecure and sorry that I wasn't better. And it was just too busy around here with Miles and Evelyn, and it was too busy, too much, and I felt like I couldn't give him the attention that he needed. So I'm sorry about that. But we had good times and we enjoyed each other, and I think we're both going to miss that. But I think it's for the best that I hand his education over to someone else. At least for a couple years.
Alright, so it was a good thing. It had its ups and downs, but okay. Alright. Teaser for what I want to talk about next week.
Yes.
We can bounce off of this. How many years of college did you do?
4 or 5. Because I did the young adult program thingy for 2 years, and I got my associate's degree, technically. It's pretty much useless now. And I went to a university for 2 or 3 years. 4 years. So I think I probably went to college for 4 or 5 years.
On and off for 10 years to get my undergraduate.
But you have an undergraduate now. That's awesome. You've accomplished something really big. That's awesome.
It felt weird being 30 and walking the stage with a bunch of 20-year-olds. It was weird. Yeah. And then another 4 years to get my master's.
That's awesome.
Let's talk college next week.
Okay.
Because, yeah, you and I are not traditional learners, especially with the college stuff.
If I could go back and finish my English degree, I definitely will. And I would, and I will, if I have time. If I ever can. Because I'm not far from doing it. I think it...
How old is Miles?
Oh, 3. He just turned 3. So he'll be going to preschool next year, and then the year after that, he'll be in kindergarten full time. So maybe I can think about taking up some classes.
All right, so diverting you on that one, I am definitely a proponent of Lancaster Bible College.
I won't be going to Bible school. I don't want to go to Bible school. Been there, done that.
Which is perfectly fine. I'm saying it, though, in what they have is their adult learner and online ed programs. And they don't push the religion and Christianity the way they used to 20 years ago. So, we can talk more on that at some point.
Do they have an
we
English
are talking
track?
more on that next
a lit
week.
track?
Yeah, I believe so. I mean, so... That's where my undergrad and my master's are from, is LBC.
Yeah.
And Melinda also got hers for her master's in counseling. She got that through LBC as well. And again,
yeah,
they've taken an approach that's supporting faith, not pushing faith.
I'm kind of leaning towards, I like in-classroom. I like being in a classroom.
See, that's where I was not good.
That's where I prefer to be.
Okay.
So, and I think I want to keep my money in Maine. I think if I did anything, it'd be like a school in Maine, the University of... There's one in South Portland, there's one in Gorham. They have campuses there. It's like 45 minutes away. Okay. So, I think if I did go back to school, it'd probably be that, just to finish my English Lit degree. And... maybe I'll take some education classes since I'm teaching children.
It wouldn't hurt.
Yeah.
Well, and, you know, if you want to lean into the librarian thing, I mean, look at library sciences. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know, but we're going to talk more college next week, kind of what our experiences were, what thoughts were, because later in September, we're going to have if he's still up for it, we're going to have a young man come on who's a former student of mine and in college, and we're going to talk through kind of life and things like that with him.
Cool.
So.
Sounds good.
Yeah. That'll be fun. That'll be neat to see him. It's been a couple years. It was right before the pandemic when I saw him last. Mm-hmm. So, it would be good to talk and see him again. It is so weird. Did I tell you what made me feel old the other day?
One of your kids that you taught in school has kids now or something?
No, that one hasn't made me feel old. That happened 10 years ago. There's a podcast I listen to called Youth Group Chronicles that is just the fail stories of youth ministry people, things that have gone wrong and drastically wrong, that are comical and, oh yeah, I've almost screwed it up in that same way. So listening to the guy who runs that podcast, and he's talking about his experiences in youth ministry, and he references being in youth ministry in like 2012. And I'm sitting here going, oh crap, I was a youth director in 2000, and I've been in this for ever. Professionally 15 years. Semi-professionally, that's 20 years? almost. Math is hard. 18? 19? I don't know. I've been working and volunteering in this since I was 19. So yeah, 18 years. I don't know, it just made me feel old when he was talking about it and saying, oh, when I was in youth group in 2012. Yeah. But yeah, so anyway, if it all works out, we're planning on having that young man on and talking through college a bit more and life and what it has been to navigate that. Yeah.
Yeah. Sounds fun.
Yeah, it will be. So, all right, you good?
Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
You're moving your kids to public school now, right?
No.
Oh, homeschooled. I really thought we were going to fight on this one.
I'm sorry. You're going to have to think
Come
of something else to fight
on.
about.
Unpopular opinions. We'll find some unpopular opinions to fight
We should
on.
do a movie review one soon and fight about a movie. Because we'll definitely fight about a movie.
Yeah, we will. Oh, but we got to pick that movie carefully.
Andor's coming out in September, by the way. So we could do Andor episodes.
We don't always fight about Star Wars, though.
We'll think of something. Maybe we'll
Anybody
ask.
got any good movie recommendations? Controversial movies? Ooh, oh. We've thought about this in the past. We could watch Event Horizon.
Is that the really bloody one that you told me about?
Yeah, it's that horrible sci-fi that, you know, some people have lost sleep over, and I'm like, oh, this is great. I'm good.
I don't know. I think it might be too... Oh.
I'm picking.
Okay.
I'm not going to make you watch something like that. So, I don't know. Well, yeah, give us your movie... Give us your movie recommendations. Which, by the way, I've got to pick on you for this one. Because we haven't said this out loud. But you sent me a text message. About Seven Eves.
Oh, yeah.
It's been like 2 or 3 weeks since we did that.
Yeah.
And you edited that episode.
Yeah.
And your final review after the episode and getting it all finished was what?
I'm looking for the text.
The summary of it was, I might read that again in a year.
Not a year, but yes. I liked it. I would read it. I would read it again in a couple of years, yeah.
Yeah. So I was kind of right. It was a Lindsay book. It just took a little while.
Sometimes I'm like a ruminator, you know, like I have to sort of think things over. Sometimes I initially don't like something, and then I really decide that I do later. It's weird.
Yeah, I forgot to write down. What's the book we're doing?
It's called The Wolf's Hour.
The Wolf's Hour.
By Robert McCammon.
Okay.
McCammon, I think.
No, that's good. I'll put it on the list. Yeah, I realized I didn't write that down. And which is fine. I normally read it the week before we record, so except for Seven Eves. I gave myself 3 weeks to do that. Yeah.
But
all right.
I'm gonna go now.
Hey, have a good week. Have fun getting your library ready.
You too. You too have a good week.
I was gonna say, I don't have a library to get ready. How does you two apply? Alright, I'm gonna go dad joke my kids.
Okay.
So, have fun.
You too, have fun.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the 42 podcast. Please take a moment to like and subscribe. And if you want to join in on the conversation, you can find us on Facebook and Twitter to add your voice to the conversation. Thank you.